All right, here we go. Live one more time. Welcome everybody to the AWS Pulse. We are here today with our first business topic. We've been out of a stream of technical conversations. Hopefully, everybody has been catching up with us today. Well, welcome everybody again. I'm Rafael. Here with my co-host John, as all of you probably already know, and our guest for today, Doug Belling from the supply chain team on AWS. We'll talk about supply chain, we'll talk about Amazon, we'll talk about AWS. We have lots to discuss in the supply chain world, and hopefully all of you have lots of questions for us too. As you all are used to, we always start with our guests, and for you as well, Doug, we always start with our guest's journey. So I wanted to ask you, what is your story with, the supply chain world? Like, where did you start? How did you get here? Amazon, AWS, all of that. Tell us everything.
Yeah, I've had some people say they have that perfect career that was mapped out on day one, and I've probably the opposite, where I've had left, right turns, all sorts of different things from that standpoint. It all started back in the early 90s. I was finishing my MBA and I was studying international business and finance, and a recruiter called me up and said, "Hey, Doug, we've got this role for a steel company, and they want somebody to come in and understand the company and then implement an ERP system." And I kind of looked at him at first and said, "Did you read what I'm studying? International business and finance. Now you want me to work for a small steel company?" And they said, "Yeah, but it's a really cool way to learn the business." Because I literally had to do every job in the company. I was doing stamping of steel. I was actually going out and buying, helping buy ingots and coils and all these other things from that standpoint. Implementing EDI. I don't know if everybody remembers those days from the early 90s of XML statements. About 2, 3 months into the company, the IT department left. Now remember, this was pre-Windows 95. So our IT department was 2 people, and they said, "Doug, you seem pretty smart. So you know what? You're now our IT guy as well." So I then had to understand IBM mainframes, again, dating myself, and Novell networks. So I don't think anybody has seen a Novell network in 25, 30 years. But it was a great experience because I had to learn so much of an operation, every little aspect that was happening within a business. My next step was to go into business analytics. I actually did a little stint in a food manufacturer. Then I went to business analytics, and this company had me move overseas to run their Asia Pacific operations. While I was there, we got bought out. I did a couple other things, but I had a great stint in between where I was hired by an Indian company who was actually going through and hiring or buying up all these different businesses to build out their supply chain for fresh food, non-fresh food, electronics, everything from that standpoint. So I had been doing some RFID work. Walmart was going to do everything around RFID in the early 2000s. They didn't. So I looked around, and that's when I got hired by this other company to do some work with them, which was an eye-opening experience because, the subcontinent of India, the logistics and supply chain is completely different than anywhere else in the world. And if you can help that type of capability, you're probably going to be able to help some of the more sophisticated supply chains that are out there. I then spent some time at Cisco Systems, doing more of an industrial job, working across industrial companies that could be mining and oil and gas and all the things in those areas, making products as well. And then have been with AWS for about 9.5 or 8.5 years now, looking after our industrial market, understanding what we should be doing, what cloud in the industry means, which has also been a journey within the company because when I started 8, 9 years ago, it was, we have cloud. Don't talk about the edge. Don't talk about anything from that standpoint. And I think we've evolved our product portfolio quite a bit to really go cloud to edge, edge to cloud, data acquisition across that whole thing, which is what our customers want and need as we really evolve our business, and their businesses are evolving to use all these cloud concepts as well.
Wow. So you from steel to mainframes to international delivery and getting into like the heyday of will they, won't they with RFIDs all the way into Amazon delivering everything everywhere and all those beautiful brown boxes that show up on my doorstep that I love so much. So does my family, a
For your
family
wife,
for part there. Yeah. So yeah, that sounds great. So this this great leap, this kind of fundamental misconception enterprises may have about supply chain transformation. What have you learned along the way? It sounds like you've had just a wealth of experience to be able to bring to bear here.
Yeah, and it's part of that experience also included intermodal, included going from shipping to air to rail to all the other legs that you have from that standpoint. So I have seen quite a bit of it, and I think it ultimately comes down to I really say it's two things that people need to get correct. One is what you can control. There's a lot of finger pointing saying, hey, my suppliers are bad, or my upstream people are asking for bad information, or constantly changing the supply forecast of what they need for their products. But that's outside of your control. And a lot of times when I work with customers and I see this is they don't really have their controllable things under their control. And what I mean by that is could be their operations. So if I'm making a product that I'm sending to other people and I'm always getting weird requests or weird changes, and you can't affect those changes, can you actually change your business to be more nimble so that when those changes come in, you can react quicker, faster, and easier so that you are able to, one, be more effective for that customer, drive those changes into your business as well. So that's one thing, is control what you can control. And then the second is it's about the data. The market is a wealth of data that's out there, and I'm going to use supply chain in industrial marketplace. The industrial market, and that includes mining, oil and gas, car industry, everything from that standpoint. I'm not going to include financial services, those areas, produces more data than any other market out there. They're drowning in data. And the problem is you're drowning in data. There's so much you don't know what to do with it. And also this data is very hard to control, hard to maintain, hard to add context to it, hard to understand what the data means. And part of what we need to be able to do is make sure that data is usable. When I worked for the analytics company that brought me to Asia back in the late 90s, the joke was always, even back then, GIGO. Four-letter acronym. I know we could probably look it up on a wiki page and find what that means, but it's garbage in, garbage out, right?
Always been true.
Always been true. But
Yeah.
you know what? People are now at the point of, well, I can put AI on top of it. I can add generative AI and it's going to clean it up. And it's not going to clean it up probably to the true level that you need it to do.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
there's steps that have to happen even before you put generative AI or other things on top of it to allow you to not have GIGO, but now you have better data in to better answers out as you start to go forward. Not sure what that acronym is, but somebody can figure that out as we go forward.
So you stand at this intersection, right? You've got the AWS customers on the AWS side with the tech in the cloud that helps enable supply chain. And then you've got experience where we intersect with Amazon, our, shared, parent company that went from the bookstore to the everything store to like being able to do, I don't know, same day delivery, that predictive inventory, everything from, I remember when I was a kid, man, I had started working at one of a very large retailer, and I would run these roller, carts back into trucks and pull things out, and there were pallets that were labeled for particular sections of the store, and I just thought, wow, this is very organized. And then I've taken some of my customers into these distribution centers that we have for Amazon, and I'm just like, wow, this is one of the biggest marvels of the natural world, with those automated rollers that go multiple football fields in length, and everything sorts itself, and you've got labels that apply themselves. So what is it like? This is kind of cited as the gold standard in supply chain. And so whenever AWS customers are brought to you and they ask, like, I have a supply chain, how can I get to even a portion of that level? How do I, go figure this out? What's your honest answer? What actually translates for them?
Yeah, and the first part is it's a journey. It's not, hey, by next week we're going to be exactly what Amazon does. Because even if you look at what we did when we purchased Kiva 15 years ago, I think it was somewhere around there, that was a monumental change of how our business was able to go forward. But why did we purchase Kiva? Pre-Kiva, we were just like most people in a warehouse where you would get a pick list, and it could be an electronic pick list or a paper pick list, and you would go walk the shelves and pick your products from that standpoint. Well, for us to be able to get to 3-day shipping from that standpoint, we would have had to had a million people 10 years ago, 20 years ago to be able to do it from that standpoint. We still have a lot of people working out there, but the scale of what we're able to do. So think of a manual picker. They're able to pick probably 60 items an hour. Now, it's great for steps. It's great for, if you're worried about your Fitbit or your Apple number for the day and stuff like that, but it's really bad for efficiency. Yeah, you can do route efficiency and route maintenance and optimization within your warehouse.
Doug, real quick, describe for the folks what a picker is. What's that job do? Yeah, I know we've heard about it, but I don't know that everyone has actually encountered it.
So a picker in the old days was literally that person. They got the pick list. Says, here's their next things that you need to go find in our warehouse so we can ship it to somebody. In us, and like I said, a traditional picker is probably 60 items an hour. They could go out, find it, bring it back to somewhere. Maybe they box it, they ship it out from there. For us, a picker is somebody where our robots, and we have towers or pods, and they're about 6.5 feet tall, 4-sided pods of inventory. The pod comes to the person. And that pod has hundreds of items of inventory on it. And that's already been placed in there. And there's a person who places that or puts the items onto that pod.
So it brings the items to them. They don't have to go walk a bunch of aisles. The aisles come to the person who has to pick the stuff out of the aisle.
The shelves magically appear. So there's a robot.
It's a beautiful choreography. It's just like, wow, how does this actually, so go on.
It's pretty cool
technology. Yeah.
So think about when you place, well, let me finish that first. So now that person can pick 30 or 40 items a minute because they're
not
picking
one a minute, it's 30 or 40 a minute.
Right. Now that might be over exaggerating because it's probably about 10 or so a minute, but you're looking at hundreds of them per hour. So the multiplier of the efficiency that we brought from them is incredible from that standpoint. But the harmony, so what we're able to do now that those things are coming to people is we look at a process path. So that process path is from that person getting that item and then getting it shipped out. We've got multiple paths that it might go down. That could be, are you doing multiple items in an order? Does this have to go into a box because maybe there's batteries in it or crushables, or could this go into a envelope? Or like an overpack from that standpoint. But each one of those paths can be optimized perfectly for us. So again, when customers say, how do I go down that path? First is doing a little bit of investigation of what's your process. Have you mapped out that process? Again, when we mapped out the process, we looked and said, we are never going to be able to scale to, by the way, in 2024, we bid 9 billion items next day shipping in the US alone. That's kind of crazy. And we're blowing that number away in 2025. So, we would have never been able to do that with the numbers that we have. But so we looked and said, our roadblock for efficiency is the person going out to the inventory. And we looked around the different product portfolios, and we saw Kiva, and Kiva was an acquisition that we made, which is a robot company that built these things to bring inventory to users. Now, the cool part about Kiva is we actually build those products in-house. Sorry, customers, and this is always hard when we bring our customers to our fulfillment centers. They see this and they go, I want that.
Can I have one? Yeah.
We can't.
Just one.
Yeah, just one, please. I want to test it out. And the problem is we can't even make enough for our own consumption. We just shipped our 1 millionth robot, working in harmony across a little over 220 plus locations around the world, doing that, bring the product to the picker from that standpoint. But we have partners who do that. We have partners who have a very similar product. And again, how is the process, what you're doing now? What partners can we bring in to map out, to look at that process? What is the full end to end? Because we also are looking always about what's that next roadblock or what's the next thing that is taking up too much time. So if I can start to look at it from a minute level, so think about the macro level of I need to go from product on a shelf to product on your doorstep, What are all of the steps that we need to optimize from that? And then we look at the micro level of each one of those steps, i.e. that picker. So when we looked at that picker, let's optimize that as much as possible to be able to get the speed up as high as possible so that we can make the right optimization and we can make you that promised time frame, right? It's all about the promise that we made to you, right? When you make that purchase, we have already tried to understand where the product is coming from, i.e. which building, not just which building,
So
but
this is
which
at
robot.
checkout that all this is taking place? Okay, go ahead.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you hit purchase.
All right.
Awesome.
Okay.
First, thank you very much. Awesome. Where you have to now get that box to you. But remember, we made a little, if you look under your purchase, it said, great, we'll get you box by tomorrow at 3 o'clock. That's a promise time that we make to you. And we hope to beat that promise as the lowest cost routing. Now that's the scary part, is we have to beat that promise to make it from that standpoint. I hope we don't call too many of the customers out and go, you know what, we're going to be late. It does happen, but hopefully as minimal as process. But part of that promise is because we know where all of our inventory is. We know every shelf, every cubby, every item within our infrastructure. We know exactly where it is.
You know
But
when
we
the truck
also,
leaves, you know when the truck leaves, right?
yep.
And what's going to be on the truck. Yeah.
And we know the truck is going to go to somewhere else. Maybe it's going to an airport to get it to closer to your house, or maybe it's going to a cross dock to go from a big truck to a Rivian truck to get to your house. We know about how long that time frame is to go from point to point. We also know the time frame of when somebody picks it off the shelf, puts it into a box, puts it onto that conveyor belt where it's going to get to the next station of where somebody's going to put it into the box or the envelope or something from there. So we can understand all of every time we need to do a touch or a process from there, and we can add all that up. And if that is going to meet that 24-hour time frame, awesome, we're ready to go. Sometimes we even beat that. I actually ordered a product yesterday, and it said it would be delivered next Monday. It arrived this afternoon. And I was like, wait a minute, we didn't just beat the promise, we blew the doors off the promise on this one. I want to go, actually, the cool thing about internally is we can actually go in and look at all of our orders. You can see all of the touch points that it did because we store that on AWS. So when Amazon makes all of that information, all that's stored on AWS, I want to go look at why. First initially was, did it have to change the route at some point in time because it actually found a lower cost routing for me? That's a really interesting thing that we can do. But we can also, this helps make our algorithms better because all of that is, it's not people sitting in an Excel spreadsheet. It's right. All of a system in the back end. And that's the other thing that our customers need to get better on is, one, trust the system. And two, what can you automate so it's not people waiting to get information, hitting the keyboard, typing in something and moving it forward from there. 99% of our product is all automated, of how it's going to be delivered, how we're doing the routing, how we're looking at type of thing. But we can always go back and do an investigation. So like I said, I can go back and bring up that order, look at the first cost routing that I thought it was going to look at, and even look at other routes as well, and then investigate, hey, why we went with this route, which was better for us ultimately.
I did my first fulfillment center tour this year, and one thing that blew my mind, I mean, I guess it makes sense now, but I just didn't imagine it was like that, was when I saw the robot, like you mentioned, it was all like randomly placed inventory. And then, I mean, it's a story I heard on the tour. I don't know how true it is. You tell me, but I asked, like, why is it random? And I heard it was because of the Harry Potter book, because it was the first very hot item. And then all the robots with that inventory were working, the others were not. And so we were like, what if all of them had this item? So everybody could work. And so the whole thing, like, it's amazing how, like, it wouldn't be like, at least for me, it wouldn't be my first gut instinct to store stuff randomly. Like, that would make it only harder, but actually it does make it easier.
I mean, well, you have to also understand where people's mindsets are. We know what we know, and until we see something differently, we don't think about it from that standpoint. So again, let's think about inventory management 20 years ago. When Harry Potter released a new book, and again, if you're pushing a shopping cart, you have your shopping lift, it's really good to have all the books right next to each other. Because I know Harry Potter, I know exactly where to go in the warehouse. It's aisle 17, shelf 32, 3 aisles up from that standpoint. Perfect. But in our instance, again, the inventory is coming to you. And this is another interesting part, Raphael, that they probably didn't say was when a robot comes to you and you pick that item off of it, typically it's 1.1 items that are picked off of that shelf at any point in time. So in other words, a robot comes up, I pick one item, the robot goes away, I pick one item, the robot goes away. I might pick two items, the robot goes away. Now, think about that where all of a sudden Harry Potter comes on and I have all of my Harry Potter on one side of the book, of that shelf. And I have 100 orders and I have 400 books on that shelf. Now, we don't just say, okay, Doug, who's now the picker, is going to pick all 400 of those orders. What happens is Doug picks one order, and then John picks an order, then Raphael picks an order, then Mike picks an order, and it has to go to all of those stations. Or if I have 10 books on each one of those shelves and it's across 10 different towers or 10 different inventory locations, it can go to 10 people and everybody can pick one at that point in time. Completely different way to look at it. And again, we didn't know about that because we weren't doing the randomly, I call it a randomly guided, it's a lightly guided random stow. Because we do guide people about where they put things when they're going into the shelves to a certain point, but they're also trained to be able to kind of say, I can put anything on anywhere on this shelf. But initially, we put all items together. You know, boom, everything's right there. But then all of a sudden, it was like, wait, why is this taking so long for all these orders to go through? And,
yeah.
You get some really smart people into the room and they can kind of dissect that and do some time studies and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, it's completely different. So it is mind blowing when people see it.
Yeah, no, it was just mind blowing. But just switching gears just a little bit and talking about supply chain intelligence, right? Because you brought that up, and when we obviously AWS powers most, if not all, of the Amazon supply chain, and we have like services like AWS or Amazon supply chain. We also have like forecast, IoT core, and things like that, and how does that like approach that AWS takes to like marketing out the products that other companies can use like differs from the traditional just ERP based like one system to do everything? Here's it, you're set. Like how does that work for our customers?
Yeah, I think part of it as well goes back to when we started. The vision was digital first. Not analog, so not a lot of paperwork, not a lot of writing things down. Digital was everything that we wanted to do from a track and trace standpoint. And when we started building our systems, we did not want to have a lot of monolithic systems out there. So we do have like a WMS, a warehouse management system, because it has a part of it that's really convenient for what we do. It's easier for us to buy it off the shelf and implement it. But ultimately, when you look at our systems, we build into what we call microservices. So again, think about what I was saying in the physical world. We look at every little process down to the minute level. So microservice is I want a transaction. Maybe it's a inventory placement. What shelf did that go to? That becomes a microservice that it starts doing API calls to all the other things around it. So if I update where the inventory is by using that API call, that updates the backend system. So when you place an order, the reverse is now where does that product live and how do I repeat it from there? It speeds things up, but it also allows us to make a change in any little service without disrupting everything. So you can still have the process go forward. You can still have more happen from that standpoint. And that's unique to how we build our products. So yes, we have some products like our AWS for our supply chain for built on AWS, which was our product core for what Amazon does. And we actually pulled that from Amazon. We had to work with legal to get some things taken out of it, but it brought the best of the breed algorithms that we have that we've been using for 20 years to run our business. Right, so these are not something that's brand new. It's not just a brand new product that's launched, but these are things that have been out there that we've been fine tuning to make our systems better. That you can go forth from that standpoint. So when we do things like where is my inventory? That is an application that we can run to understand all of the things that are happening from there. You mentioned forecast, and while most customers have forecast for most customers, one, it's based on history. So what were my sales historically? And it's only on the data that you typically have. So your sales information, your production information, your inbound material, maybe some other things from that standpoint. What we're able to do with forecast is now include other variables. So forecast for us allows us to basically forecast what we think you're going to purchase before you purchase it. Because if we understand what we think you're going to purchase, I can put the right product at the right warehouse so I can make that promise to deliver it for you quicker, faster, and easier. Now, how do we do that? We look at your buying patterns. We look at people similar to you buying patterns. We then look at things like social media and other feeds, which typically are not in like an ERP system or other things. We include those feeds into there. So suddenly we might see that suddenly a product is selling, or a product went on TikTok or Facebook or some other social media product out there, that all of a sudden we see that, hey, this is starting to get more hits in this area, maybe in the US or Europe or somewhere else. We can predict that that product's going to sell more. So we're going to route product into that location so that we can get ahead of the potential sales as we move forward. So now think of, yep.
I was gonna ask, is my Alexa listening to my wife telling me, "Hey, we got to get more cat food," or is that not part of it?
You know, there's all sorts of rumors about that. And the reality is if you said Alexa, then it would start understanding what you're doing. But if you didn't say Alexa, it is in the background, not understanding those things. But
it's a great party trick for a Zoom call too. Yeah.
Yes.
So call to everyone's devices and see how that echo responds. Yep.
Yeah, so we probably put everybody's off on this call right now. So hopefully they're not sitting in your office talking to each other.
Doug, you said some things that were pretty subtle, but it kind of blew my mind because you're talking about microservices, right, in this supply chain intelligence. But the scale is trippy. So yeah, you can say, oh, it's a microservice and it'll, understand that you took something out of this bin and put it into this box and now it's going to get shipped out to Mrs. So-and-so, or you've taken this thing out of the box that we got and we put it into the pick and pack shelves and now it's on this robot. It can dance around that field and be able to bring it to folks. But there was an evolution. We didn't start with that. We went through service-oriented architecture like everybody else. We got 2 microservices pretty early, wrote some of the papers out there about that. But the sheer scale of what this is doing, it's not tens of inventory items or hundreds or thousands or millions. It's, you said billions, right?
Yeah, in 2025 we had, or 2024 in the US or North America, we had 9 billion next day orders delivered.
Jeez, man. Wow. That's
and yes,
phenomenal.
Each one of those probably has 30 or 40 or 50 different line items that go into a relational database, which runs on AWS. If you actually, I don't have all the statistics in front of me, but if you look, anybody can Google it. It's the statistics for Prime Day 2025. And we produced this for 2024, 2023. You can see the scale that we're growing with the amount of data that we're collecting. I think our relational database grew, if I remember correctly, the number was close to 4 terabytes in size during Prime Day. And that's 3 days.
And the crazy thing is it's not 9 billion books. It's like one is a book, the other one is a kayak. Like, that's crazy. Like, it's completely different.
And some are cars now. Some are cars too, right? Yeah.
Yep. Well, but we also have different sites. So the sites that we were talking about with robotics, those are not doing cars. Those are not doing kayaks. They're doing items that are 25 pounds or less, which is honestly probably 60 or 70% of the products that we sell. And we do have some traditional warehousing for the canoes, kayaks, couches, TVs, those type of things from there. But we do a lot of similar processes that we're tracking as much as possible. And all of those processes, every touch has a line item that goes into yet another database. But once we have that database, that allows us to do the forecasting. Who's been ordering these items? Where should they be going? That allows us to do all of the other things that we were just talking about, such as, yes, I can promise you this time frame. Yes, I'm going to allow you to bring this in from that standpoint. I can look at inventory staleness. Maybe I have an agreement with a partner who maybe the product isn't selling at the speed that we thought with from that standpoint. We can work with that supplier of that product and go, hey, It's not selling for some reason in this area. Maybe we do a little sale on it. Maybe we get a 10% off, 20% off coupon or something from that standpoint.
I'm
And
glad
those
you
are,
brought that up. Let's talk about that data integration. So you talked about our database, like this one's growing at 4 terabytes across 3 days, right? But you've got to take the data from the suppliers, the people who are the logistics partners who are delivering stuff, other people's trucks, other people's drayage, other people's trains, other people's airplanes, and then the folks that are actually providing the products themselves. So whenever you go talk to customers, how do those enterprises actually get to be able to achieve that data integration that are needed for like an AI driven supply chain? How do they actually get there with being able to plug all these different pieces together?
yeah, one of the cool technologies that we launched, I can't remember, it's 3 or 4 years ago, maybe in 5 years ago now, is a product called Clean Rooms. And what Clean Rooms allows you to do is actually share data sets amongst people, amongst companies. So you can say, hey, I want to give you, let's say I actually make the product, so I'm a producer of the product. I want to give you my production plan of products, and I'm going to give you an understanding of when that product's going to be made. Because if I understand when it's going to be made, then I can understand when it's going to be shipped. If I understand when it's going to be shipped, I understand when I'm going to receive it. So the better visibility you can get across that supply chain, including production, including those other areas, you'll be able to understand these things as you start to move forward a little bit. So Clean Rooms is a way for us to securely share that information. So I could be product A and I want to share it with a vendor B, but I don't want to give them the full data set, and maybe we share some of that information across with that. Think of it as that electronic data interchange, the next level. So in the past, what you would
Right.
do,
Not
electronic
point-to-point EDIs anymore.
Yep, now it's live EDI feeds that are happening from that standpoint. Instead of, hey, I have to receive an XML statement, because that's kind of how EDI worked, and then upload it and then figure it out from that standpoint. It is that next generation of live data feeds of real information as it's happening so that I can understand. Because what might happen is you might say, I'm going to ship this product to you at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but your line goes down at 2 o'clock. Well, at 2 o'clock, now at 3 o'clock, I'm still trying to make product so I can ship products out the door to get to you for your warehouse. But if I knew that that line went down, now I can have better data sharing across the supply chain and say, we're not going to ship it to you. We're going to be late. Maybe start to produce a different product or sell a different product. Or think of our case, we're trying to position trucks on our dock doors so product can get in. If I know that the truck's going to be late, I could actually have a different inventory, a different product come to my doors.
Swap out a different truck, get some more efficiency because you're not sitting there waiting at an empty dock door. That makes a lot of sense.
Downtime is expensive.
So
Yeah.
on that note, like what? So we've got clean rooms, and this enables a data set to be shared amongst a set of consumers and producers. So what are the barriers beyond that technical connectivity when it comes to that data integration?
I think it's a little bit about perception of the technology. If we look back 5 years, AI was perceived as more expensive. I think we've democratized, I'm going to use generic AI and ML first, because that's not brand new. Yes, there's a buzzword of the year with Gen AI, which is now 2-3 years old, but that's actually something that's been out there for 10 years. It's just that the cost, the infrastructure, getting it out there was a lot cheaper and easier to get to because of the infrastructure that's there. But we've been doing that with AI and ML with customers and partners to be able to bring a lot of that integration standpoint. These data sets are huge, right? Again, think about just using what we were doing and trying to find the anomalies in that behavior. I have customers in manufacturing, one customer in a week at one location, which by the way is a huge location, hundreds of millions of square feet. They do 6 petabytes of data in a week.
Wow.
Well, find out those 2 little nuggets of information in the 6 petabytes of data is hard to find out of what my issue could be as I go forward. And that could be predictive maintenance of a machine, that could be inventory issues, all these different things from there. But if I do AI and ML, now I can say, hey, go tell me where the issues are starting to occur. And that's kind of what we bring with some of these product portfolios, is some of that automation to find the anomalous behavior. Now, there's a difference between identifying anomalous behavior and understanding the business impact. And this is
right,
where I
because that's
think,
signal and noise. Like you want to erase the anomalies, but only if it matters for a decision.
well, not only that, but the data scientists are awesome. I don't understand what they do half the time because it just blows my mind. These, I probably wasn't the best math student in the world, but I
The
passed.
magicians of our age. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the good part. But they may not understand the business context. So suddenly we see a spike in temperature. Well, but if I'm going to pick on a machine, temperature, all of a sudden we see a spike in it. Does that mean that something else was occurring? Does that mean it's going to break? Does that mean we maybe change the product set on it? That when I change the product set, my temperature has to go up because of some other variable? Well, that data set won't tell you that, but the business impact by being able to look across that data set, maybe other data sets, is where the value starts to occur out there. So it's not just looking at that one data set, but it's looking at maybe scheduling. So now if I understand, hey, my product portfolio changed on that machine, that's why the temperature went up. That's not anomalous behavior you should be looking at. Because yes, the temperature spiked, but the temperature spiked because I changed the product.
It spiked because something logically happened, not because something something that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, another example, the temperature went up because a ball bearing is starting to go bad, or I don't have enough grease in the motor.
And you
And
need to
guess
know.
what? Then I need to know about it from that standpoint. So it's I think the hard part for a lot of people is still tying together the data-driven insights with the business knowledge so that they can react to the business, which is data-driven as they move forward.
Okay, got it. So you said there's the perception of the software, and there is the reality of AI and machine learning in order to be able to pick apart petabyte scale data. And then you said it's really getting into, is it a signal or is it noise? Is that anomaly expected or is it unexpected? And does it have business value? Or does it have business consequence? I guess is the better way to phrase that. Like, could this be a very bad day if our ball bearing goes out on this, this one machine that's at the center of our business? Makes a lot of sense there.
Yep, yep, and that's what it is. And to me, that's culture. That's culture of trying to get two people who would probably never talk to each other or never see each other in the hallway to talk to understand how these things tie together.
And do they even, right? I mean, can I throw the wrench, John? Is it that time
Yeah,
yet?
throw the wrench in, Raphael. Raphael loves the wrench. Go for it, buddy.
So just a little history for you, that when we started this stream, I told John that I would do this if we were allowed to bring in a controversial topic every time. That's because I just
You
love
didn't
that.
warn me about this. No, wait a minute. No, I didn't sign up for this. Nope, nope, nope.
Well, I'm sure if you've seen any other episode, you could see that coming. So I'll do this. I'll do the obvious one because it's the one that comes up the most, and it comes up every day. Not every day, but at least every week, I guess, with my customers too. But like, we're a supply chain gold star example out there, but we're a retail company at the center of it at the end of the day. But we're also selling cloud services to everyone, including competitors. Why? And we're saying, hey, whatever you see that we do very well here, look at the amazing stuff we do. We can help you do those things too. And that sounds great in promise, but like, why should a competitor trust us? Like, why should the competitor be like, yeah, here, help me be as good as you? And why would we help them even? Like, that make that math make sense for me. Help me out.
Yeah, a little bit comes down to security and how we've developed security from day one. So one of the fears is, hey, we can get into somebody else's data set and look at what they're selling, and then we're gonna, sell that product for lower cost so that we can undercut them and have more people coming to us because we're gonna be lower. Reality is we cannot see anybody's data set. So we securitize with everything. It used to be where the customer had to turn on security. And
so, Doug, you're saying we within AWS cloud, whenever a customer is running their data on our cloud, we don't get to open that box. That box is opaque to us.
It's secure by default. So we use what is AES 128 and all the other fun things. And again, we can get the smarter security guys to talk about the architecture and the structures. But yes, there's no way for even an AWS person to go into somebody else's virtual private cloud environment, their tenant, if you want to put it that way, their data set. We can't see it. There's no way we can do it from that standpoint. And we've proven that time and time again. And that's why we do have a lot of our perceived competitors running on AWS right next to, yep, the Amazon environment, which could be thought of as the competitor from that standpoint.
Yeah, so they talk about it as the co-opetition sometimes. So we cooperate with some companies, and we compete with them at the same time. But inside of that, though, from the AWS perspective, I've had the same experience where customers will come to me as their architect for their account. They say, "Oh, go look in my account and tell me X, Y, Z." It's like, "I'm sorry, sir, ma'am, I can't. Like, this is not something I have permissions to do. I would have to have you share your screen, and I go look at things with you if you want me to go take a look at that, and that's totally your purview. But it's not on me to be able to get into their account. I just don't have the tools, and it's forbidden. Like, you can't do that. That's a big X whenever we get into that scenario. But at the same time, we're taking these supply chain tools that we've developed because we had to. We developed this stuff because Amazon.com had to run, because that everything store was hungry. Yep. And AWS fed that with all of this tech, like from IoT to getting the dashboards right, being able to deliver, those analytics that you were talking about with AI over and over. So that makes a lot of sense to me that we've got this, the wall that separates what AWS does from, what Amazon does, in that sense that we don't get to get inside of a customer's individual tenant in that AWS account. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, also, I think what we're getting better at is sharing across all the different areas. Mm-hmm. It's not just Amazon and AWS, but you have Amazon, AWS, Echo, Alexas. You've got Project Kuiper now coming out from that standpoint. We now
getting on orbit now. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But now we're also doing things like, so historically we didn't sell logistics. So we have a large fleet of trucks. We have airlines, we have all those different things from that standpoint. So we're becoming a little bit of a 3PL, third-party logistics company, and we're offering some of those services to some of our customers. Some of them see it as a great competitive advantage for them because it's not their core business. Okay, now this is when we start to get into now the FedEx and UPSs, and those guys may not like us as much, but we also want to know that we're never going to be able to fill in all of the gaps. But when there's certain things that we can do, we should be offering those to hopefully make everybody better into the industry as well.
Yeah, you probably know this way better than me, but what I see is, despite what we typically hear as rumors, I see Amazon more interested in collaborating than in competing. Like what you mentioned, right? Like fulfilled by Amazon. And sometimes it's not even the tech that we're sharing. It's like the whole fulfillment process. Like, if you want, we'll take over that for you. Just ship it to our warehouse. We'll take it from there. And then, the marketplace on Amazon.com, you can go create a store, sell it there. Like, it seems like what I see, like from the inside here, is we're interested more in collaborating than competing for the most part,
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's I know there's some perception of that we want to compete, but that's very short-sighted. The collaboration is where we're going to be there for the longer term and for the long areas. And everybody knows that, we're not just in it for the 1 year turn that we're going to get from that standpoint. We look at 5, 10 years, 15 years down the road of where the market's going to be and how we can help shape that market as we move forward, which I think is a different way of how we look at sales, how we look at our customer relationships, and overall of how we look at the market as well.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll even give an example. Like today I was at one of our industrial customers that makes industrial products that go into factories and even into warehousing and logistics and other things. And one of the ideas that I've had for a few years is and they sell through distributors. So their distributors take inventory and the inventory sits there. The problem with that is the inventory for the distributors now becomes a cost barrier for the distributors, because they have to have so much inventory on hand. And I said, why don't we become, your tier 1 warehouse where the distributors basically order through us and we get it to them either next day or even 2-hour or 1-hour delivery, depending on the time frame and the location and everything, of certain amount of products. Now, we're not going to take turbines and jet engines and those type of things to be able to do next day delivery, but maybe. But how do we help to start doing that? Because that would alleviate a little bit of the pain from the supplier, and it alleviates a lot of the pain from the distributor, opens up some capital for them to be able to change that discussion of, hey, I don't have to have $2 million of inventory sitting here because I know that I can get it very quickly, but I still know that I have that time frame or the promise. Again, now the promise goes away from consumer into enterprise as we start to move forward. But then I said, now let's even get smarter about this. If you've got, let's say I'm taking a motor out there and the motor runs our conveyance systems. Could I put predictive maintenance onto that motor so that I know potentially when it's going to fail before it fails? Predictive maintenance is not, hey, this is going to fail in 10 minutes. Predictive maintenance is this is going to fail 2, 3, 4 weeks down the road. Now I could get that signal back to my distributor and to Amazon so that we drop that. We now take the motor. We know exactly what the motor is. We know where the motor is running. That motor could be the new replacement for that could be brought to the distributor using AWS and Amazon, right? So AWS is the data stream. And then without people going into there, we could fill that order process. It's almost like the motor is calling up the ordering system and saying, I need a new motor. We drop that motor to the distributor with, hey, you need to bring this to Doug's house for his, I don't have a conveyor belt at home, but Doug's conveyor belt at home sometime in the next 2 weeks before it fails.
So don't wait for the smoke. You tie in telemetry on device, and it's going to be able to say, hey, I'm not looking so hot. I need some help. Not right now, but you gotta get somebody. And so there's data that actually feeds that well before the smoke starts curling up on one of your critical systems.
Just like my printer orders, but on a company
on a scale standpoint.
On a different scale, different scale.
Yeah, if your printer runs out of ink, if your printer runs out of ink, you just do black and white instead of color, right? I mean,
you did mention AI, and you mentioned we've been doing it for a long time, man. And I love this topic. Rafael knows, our audience knows. I've really, maybe gotten into the AI thing a lot, and there's significant debate. Some would say hype about AI specifically. Let's talk about it in the supply chain management. Like the demand forecasting, the inventory optimization, all of those are really, fantastic. Do we think that this has new things that we can achieve with the new set of AI that are coming out now? Because I'm seeing new primitives, new building blocks from the AWS side. Whenever I go architect something, when Rafael goes and whenever you go and architect something with your team, brand new stuff is there. So how do we see what's coming down the road with this next wave of the AI blessings that we're able to actually utilize? So what's the next version of supply chain look like?
Well, in 3 weeks, we'll have about 40 new products that'll come out at reInvent. So where that's going to make things even worse, dating the series, but it's, how it is. We have new things coming out every day. But let's just pick on procurement for a second. So procurement is part of your supply chain, right? Procurement is what is your orders, the things are coming in, so I don't run out of inventory. But the problem is with most companies, procurement is a person behind a keyboard entering those orders. Why? Why do we need procurement doing that all the time? If I can understand inventory mins and maxes, so if I understand I don't want to order more than 500 of these parts, but if I get down to 50 of them, order them. Right now, what happens is somebody then opens up their ordering system, types in order 450 of these, maybe goes out and gets the pricing, and then makes the order. Then they wait for the product to come in. Well, can't I use generative AI in a workflow to do that? That says, hey, my max is 500. I got down to 50. Send out, build a generative AI. The first that sends out, here's my part number. Here's my 6 suppliers. Everybody send me your pricing. If whoever's got the best pricing and the best time frame for me to get that product time frame, so those could be even an and or logic that two different agents are looking at. Now, a person doesn't have to be involved. That
Right.
whole process becomes automated. Now, that procurement person's role will change. Yes. Does it mean that procurement goes away? No, but procurement's role will change as they start to go forward. They're going to, do higher level capabilities. Think about our procurement. We have what, 400 million SKUs, I think it is, on Amazon, or different part numbers that you can buy. We cannot have people sitting there ordering those type of things manually. So all of our procurement is same thing. It's automated, 99.9, I don't know how many nines of that percentage is automatically ordered. We have a min that comes in, we have a max that goes out. A large percentage of data placement or product placement also occurs. So if I see items that are selling in one location, the system will say, hey, we're seeing an item spiking in here, send the product over to here, because again, I want to get to the lowest cost routing from that standpoint. Procurement is more of a job of what are the issues. This goes back to kind of where I started. What can you control right now? Ordering is a pretty easy thing to control, and building an agent for control takes that away, because now what you're doing is you're managing the exceptions, not managing the norm. And most customers are still managing the normalization or the norm, the easy things in the business.
So let's flip that coin over. Where does it fall short? So there's still that inventory day where you go through and make sure, all the inventory stacks up against what the data says you have this much, but reality says you have this much. So where's AI stop? Where does it fall short?
Great question, but let me tell you one thing about inventory. We never do inventory at our fulfillment centers.
That's not what everybody does. That's us. Yeah.
Yes, but no one else does.
The reason we do that is because we've got computer vision built into it, so we can understand where the products are. We do double and triple and quadruple checking from that standpoint. So again, what do a lot of people do? They look at the manual process, because that's how we've been doing it for 10 years. I was working with a customer and I said, wouldn't it be cool that I could fly a drone around my warehouse and take a snapshot of the picture, that it would understand where inventory changes were occurring? So maybe I see a gap in the warehouse, I see something else from that standpoint. And at that point, only do inventory for those little locations. Not inventory the whole location, because that takes time and money, but just where those changes occurred. Now, that's not an example to answer your question, so I didn't answer your question yet, but we'll get to that in a moment. But that's a different way, again, to think about the technology to help make it effective for the users as we move forward. Where are the gaps, or where are the issues? I think right now, people are afraid of hallucinations. People are afraid of all these things that we're hearing about, the uncontrolled things that this technology is building in. I think if you look at our technology with Bedrock and what we've done with guardrails and a lot of the other things, and now you're starting to see agents validating and validating validation, some of the hallucinations and some of the issues people were worried about are becoming less of an issue. So they're starting to go away from that standpoint. We're proving that the technology can check this sounds bizarre, but the technology is now checking the technology to validate it, versus in the past, it was humans in the loop that were checking it. And again, if we can get the humans out of the loop, humans have a gray area. We're yeah, that's good enough, versus a computer is ones and zeros, yes or no from that standpoint. So anytime we can get rid of that gray zone and use these technologies to check the technology, it starts getting really, really cool from eliminating some of those perceptions of where the risk is.
Yeah, so with traditional ML, we had like lower accuracy numbers. Nothing was going to be 100%. Lower precision, maybe it wasn't going to be as precise as you wanted it to be. And now we're looking at, it's hallucinations. But you're right, we do have that automated reasoning that we're baking in to those AWS, Amazon Bedrock guardrails, to where that's going to be able to, check it. And that is actually a little bit cheaper, because that automated reasoning, it doesn't need a GPU to run. That can run on a CPU. And so we can offload part of the work that a lot of folks are doing with GPU tech, because they're running on LLMs, instead deliver that cheaper and also deliver more truth, right? Because this is actually doing that automated reasoning on top of it. But you're right, we still do have a little bit to go to make sure that we don't fall short with those hallucinations.
Yeah.
Rafael,
Yeah.
you want to take us into the last bit
I'll
here?
I'll do something original, and we'll
Uh-oh,
we'll do
here
what
we
we
go.
always do. No, we'll do what we always do. I want to close this, Doug, with the question that we always ask, like, which is, the future. What do you see the future of supply chain, like 5, 10, however many years you want to jump ahead, go ahead. But what do you see the future being, and how do we get there?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting parts is there's never an end game in a lot of these businesses, supply chain, manufacturing. It's always continuous improvement. It's always what's the next cool thing we're going to bring in from that standpoint. People always ask us, are you going to have a lights out facility? What's a lights out facility? A lights out facility is no people in place.
Just bots. Yeah.
Yep, just bots, or just from that standpoint. I think that is probably 40, 50 years down the road, especially in our environments. Now, I'm working with customers that can do lights out processes because they're only making a single product. Think about the dexterity that you need to do for a robot to be able to pick up potato chips, books, computers, and all those other things from that standpoint. Again, 40 million products, and be able to understand the weight, the crush pressure, and everything else from there is very difficult to do from a robotic standpoint. Human beings are pretty good with understanding that. I don't see a lot of people crushing potato chips and those type of things on purpose
These
in our
10 things are
facility.
pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And to do these 10 things, you almost need, you need more than one GPU next to the robot doing it from there. But
pretty
as
good
we,
wetware up there. It does a pretty good job. Yeah.
As we build these models, they will get smarter to allow us to do that type of capability. And again, I'm seeing people doing it, not just one or two product portfolios, but getting in the 10s, the 20s, the 50s, not quite 100 yet, to be able to not have to worry about all those variables. So I see that in the long term. But I see as we start to move forward, people are going to start building more and more autonomous supply chains. Self-healing, self-running, self-building, like I said, self-ordering capabilities to be able to allow that less human in the loop. I was going to say humanless in the loop, but less human in the loop as they start to move forward. I see that
And back to
happening
your
right
first
now.
lesson, it's still just going to be the things they can control. No matter how much automation you pack in, it's still just going to be what's inside of their own box, right?
Yep. There's always going to be the next supply chain interaction, right? Suez Canal, who actually thought that a boat was going to get stuck in the Suez Canal? Well, now that they did that, you can plan for that. Well, what's the next one? Right? What's the next Suez Canal that we're going to have from that standpoint? There will be another one. What was it? The one before, a long time ago was you had floods in Thailand. So all the semiconductor memory facilities were underwater. Well, okay, now make not all the facilities in one location, distribute those across a wider geography and stuff from that standpoint. So again, there's always continuous learnings but you need to be able to react to those learnings as quick as possible.
Doug, I do want to express appreciation for you, appreciation for our audience. Rafael, appreciate you co-hosting with me here. And this has been another AWS Pulse. Thank you so much for taking us through all the things with AWS and supply chain, and Amazon proper and supply chain as well. Thank you very much, and we'll be seeing you in another couple of weeks.